All right, now I'm going to show you how to graph a quadratic. Once you have these four pieces of information, I'm going to show you how to graph the quadratic on a coordinate plane. Okay, so I've given you a function here. We got y equals x squared minus 8x plus 7. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and I try to identify these four pieces of information. All right, so to identify the axis of symmetry, remember it's x equals negative b over 2a. In this case, b is negative 8, so that's going to be negative 8 over 2 times a. What's a here? What's in front of this x squared, right? There's a 1 there, right? Okay, so that's 2 times 1. Negative 8, that's 8 over 2 times 1. That's 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our axis of symmetry is at x equals 4. All right? And now that we have the axis of symmetry, that'll help us identify the vertex, because the vertex is an xy coordinate where x is the axis of symmetry. So we're going to put a 4 here, and now we're going to plug 4 into the original function. So we're going to have y equals 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 7. 4 squared, that's 16, minus 8 times 4, that's 32, plus 7 is equal to 16 minus 32. That's negative 16. Negative 16 plus 7, well, that's going to be negative 9. Sorry, negative 9. I was thinking 13 for some reason. So negative 16 plus 7, that's negative 9. So our vertex is at 4 and negative 9. All right? And now what we can do is we can actually start graphing this. All right? Well, let's go ahead. Let's find the rest of the information, then we'll start graphing. So then the y-intercept is always at the point 0, c. Well, what's c in this case? It's positive 7, right? So the y-intercept is at 0, 7. And now the x-intercepts, okay, to identify those, we can either factor or we can, we can extract square roots. We can complete the square. We can use the quadratic formula. In this particular case, we can complete the square. We can also factor. But what I want to do is I want to use the quadratic formula because I want to show you that the quadratic formula even works in situations where you can factor. So if you are the kind of person who does not know how to decide which technique to use, then you should become an expert at the quadratic formula because it works every single time. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, remember that the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And in this case, b is negative 8. So this is going to be negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared, negative 8, and then squared on the outside, minus 4. A, we've already said, is 1. So put a 1 there. And c, we have already said, is 7. Okay, good. All over the whole thing, that whole numerator, all over 2a. And we already said that a is 1. So this is now going to become, this negative 8 becomes 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared is 64. And then minus 4 times 1 times 7. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 7 is 28. All over 2 times 1 is 2. Well, what's 64 minus 28? 64 minus 28, let's see, that's 44, that's 36. So we basically have here is 8 plus or minus the square root of 36 over 2. And the square root of 36 is 6. So this is 8 plus or minus 6 over 2. Now, I wanted to show you something that I brought up in the last video. I'm going to break this up into two of them. I'm going to have 8 plus 6 over 2 and 8 minus 6 over 2. So these are my two possible answers, okay? And this is supposed to be x is equal to. This whole thing is x is equal. So x equals, x equals. Instead of solving 8 plus 6, I'm actually going to break this up into two fractions. X is equal to 8 over 2 plus 6 over 2. And then this one is x equals 8 over 2 minus 6 over 2. Well, what's 8 divided by 2? That's 4, right? So what we have here is x equals 4 plus, what's 6 divided by 2? That's 3. 4 plus 3. This one is x equals 8 divided by 2 is 4 minus 6 divided by 2 is 3. And I want to remind you, the axis of symmetry is 4. And in every time in this quadratic formula, you will always have as the first number here, if you divide it by the 2a. And you know why? I want to show you something. Look. Negative b over 2a, right? Look in the quadratic formula. Negative b over 2a. It's right there. That's the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is built into the quadratic formula. It is a part of the quadratic formula. And so this portion here, which is called the discriminant, this plus or minus this, well, this is the discriminant. And then if you divide the discriminant by 2a, you get the horizontal shift of the x-intercepts from the axis of symmetry. And in this case, the horizontal shift is 3. We're going to go plus 3 and we're going to go minus 3. Okay? So now, if you want to, I wanted to show you that. Let's go all the way back here. And let's pretend that, okay, here we go. We got x is equal to 8 plus or minus 6 over 2. So one of our x's is 8 plus 6 over 2. 8 plus 6, that's 14, divided by 2 is 7. Then we have x equals 8 minus 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. Over 2, 2 divided by 2, that's 1. And so here are our x-intercepts. And so now, once we have an axis of symmetry, and technically we don't really need the axis of symmetry to graph the quadratic, but it's good if you're learning to go ahead and draw on the axis of symmetry so you can understand it better. We got the axis of symmetry, the vertex, the y-intercept, and then the x-intercepts, and now we can graph the quadratic. So now I'm going to show you how to graph the function. Here's what you're going to do. You are going to plot the vertex. You're going to plot the y-intercept. You're going to plot both and the x-intercepts, even though the x is 7, the actual point, the intercept is actually 7, 0, and this one is 1, 0. So you are going to plot the x-intercepts. So that's 4 points to plot. And we're going to go ahead and draw in the axis of symmetry. So first the axis of symmetry is that x equals 4. So here's the origin, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to kind of draw a dashed line in there. That's the axis of symmetry. Then we're going to plot the vertex, 4 and negative 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's down here. So put a dot there. That's the vertex. That's the bottom of the parabola. Then we're going to plot the y-intercept, which is at 0, 7. So from here, we're going to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all the way up here. Okay. Then the x-intercepts are at 7, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 0. And then the other one is at 1, 0. So here, 1, 0. Now I want to plot one more point. Do you see this the y-intercept at 0, 7? From the y-intercept, count over to the axis of symmetry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then count the same number again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and put a dot there. Because now what you'll see here is we've got this U shape. And now all we have to do now is draw a line through there. Now to you, To you, it may look like a V, but it is not a V. It is a U. It is not V. It is U. Okay? All right, so look, it's a U. So watch this. Here's the key. The key to it being a U is it has to be flat on the bottom. Has to be flat on the bottom. So go down to the vertex and draw a little tiny flat, make it kind of flat at the bottom. Then, after it's flat at the bottom, curve it up to go through this point and then through this point. And then on the other side, curve it up to go through this point and through this point. So watch this. We're going to curve it up. It's flat. Sorry, that's a little too flat. And we're going to curve it up to go through there. And it's got to be kind of getting steeper and steeper along the way. And there we go. That's one side of it. It's a sketch. It's not going to be perfect. So then on this side, we're going to kind of curve it up. We're going to go through that point. And then we're going to go through that point. And now we have sketched the graph of a quadratic. That is the graph that goes with this quadratic function. Okay, so that's one. I'm gonna take a break for now, and then in the next video we'll graph one more quadratic, and then you'll know how to. You'll be much better at this, and you'll know how to do it. Okay. All right. I'll see you in the next one.